Welcome everyone to another Startup Grind. We're still with the COVID restrictions, so still virtual, but it's really nice that we can at least meet in person for the live stream. I think that gives a different depth, a different kind of interaction. So I'm really happy, Marc, that you're able to join us here in Zurich this evening. And with that, I'd like to also jump right in and thank you, Marc, for making the effort for coming from Bern to Zurich to be with us this evening.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And it's wonderful to have this audience at home, and even here it feels like a big event. It's good.
Yes, it's good. Yeah, we're lucky that F10, the incubator, the fintech incubator and accelerator, provided the space for us this evening, and so we have this nice setup. And so thank you to F10 for that. We like to start off usually by going back a little bit and understanding a bit where you come from. You're Swiss, born here in Switzerland, and since I know you came from Bern today, are you originally from Bern?
I was born in Lausanne.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we moved to Bern after I was 1 year old, so I didn't pick up too much of French.
So, okay. Yeah. And you moved into Bern city, so you grew up in the big city, or?
No, I grew up a bit in the north, in Hinterkappel, which means like behind the moon. Yeah. So it's now I live in Bern, in the city.
But growing up was in a small town, small village.
Yeah, really a small one. Yeah.
Okay.
But in a Swiss skyscraper, so 16 floors high. Oh, wow. So that was maybe an influence of creating this wish of flying.
Okay, interesting. And when you were young, just from an entrepreneurial perspective, did you have any influence from an uncle, an aunt, or your parents that were more entrepreneurial, or you yourself? Did you already feel that itch as a child to do something different?
I didn't have too many influences there, but I always thought it must be an adventure to start something new, whatever that is. If it's an exploration, an adventure, a company, and I think that was my influences. Yeah.
Okay. Did you? So sometimes our guests, people we talk to, when they're like 8 or 9, they start. Well, depending on which age range you're in, but sometimes they'd be burning CDs and selling it to their classmates, or selling candy, things like that. Did you already have some kind of business ventures in class?
Not in this case, but I wanted to get my own money, and I wanted to really be in a job in an early stage. So when I was about 7, 8 years old, I was already working as a child, working in the garden at a small company. And I remember that I got 3 Swiss francs per hour. And at the end of the week, I just bought myself a really crappy board to like skateboard. Yeah, skateboard. But it was really it
was your own that you bought with your money.
Yeah, but it was really so crap, and it was so I nearly broke my leg the first time there. So.
And as a child, did you already have some thoughts along the lines of flying, and this whole passion that you have now as an adult of being in the air?
Yeah, I could observe the birds, and they were taking off from the skyscraper. I grew up on the 11th floor, and I knew that it must be possible to fly without wings, even for human beings. And so that was maybe the ignition and the starting point of the whole adventure there.
And so tell us a little bit, how did that start? When was the first time that you actually started exploring skydiving?
Yeah, skydiving was second. I started with flying gliders, because to fly gliders, that's pretty easy to get into the sport with a club, and you attend the team there, and then you have the opportunity to fly with the great planes, and you don't have to own the planes, you just rent them. And that was the first starting point. And I started flying with the age of 16, I think 17. Yeah. And I had my flying license before I could drive a car. And I always felt much more safe in a plane than in a car. And I still think it's nowadays the same. I would be a better pilot than a car driver.
Right. And so on your profile, it says that in spite of doing these sort of challenging, jumping out of a plane and even flying an airplane is requires a certain amount of courage. in the beginning, did you also experience that challenge of not being comfortable in going up in the air?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that was one of the reasons why I did it anyway, because I always felt this kind of pain in my stomach when I was looking out at the balcony in our flat, and I thought I must overcome that, because it must be great to experience high altitudes, even in the mountains everywhere. Right. And I felt that there must be a special kind of freedom if you could just cope with that situation and just get into it, even when you're scared.
Mm-hmm. For you, what's your definition of courage?
I think when you face any kind of fear and danger, if you just find a way to confront yourself to this new situation and to get into it, if it's not stupid, of course. And I think that then at the other side, there's a door that opens, and it can be really fantastic and brilliant to get into this next level if you achieve that next level. And it can be something really small. You don't have to get out of planes. It can be just approaching someone you admire, or making that call, or whatever it is that takes a bit of courage. And I think it's a wonderful thing you can achieve if you get this ambition, and if you really find a way to do it anyway, even when you're scared.
Yeah. Over the course of exploring your own fears and finding your own courage, are there any specific factors or methods that you've discovered that you can approach, specific factors to overcoming your whatever the fear is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the more you imagine the situation, the more you simulate the real event, the more you can train how you will react, and then you are in the actual situation. You did it hundreds of times before, and then when it happens, it's kind of natural. And they say, yeah, okay, I'm flying now, and I was flying for hundreds of hours in my bed, in my imagination, and you can just train yourself in this real simulation, and then you at the end. I think you become a real pro in even in difficult situations. For example, I was flying airplanes on the simulator when it came out on the computer from Microsoft, and I was flying like hell, but not in a normal way. I was taking off, I shut down the engine, and I had to survive. And that's what at the end saved my life 2 times now in the airplane.
And so from that perspective, back to your example of talking to someone that you're maybe not comfortable with, you would take whatever it is that scenario is and play it in your mind so that you become consciously comfortable with that, so that when you actually have to do it, you're already kind of trained.
Yeah, exactly. And you can just create a worst case scenario, which is usually absolutely ridiculous if you think it to the end. And then you know that the real situation will be not as severe like the worst case scenario. And you will be surprised at how easy it is at the end, usually.
Yeah, nice. And is there something today that you're still afraid of?
Yes, plenty of things. Like everyone, I think now in special times, I'm scared if we will find a way back into a kind of normal life, if the economy will survive, if the country will relax at the end, or the world will relax. So all these kind of fears, and then there's some personal fears, like how my 2 daughters will find their way in their lives. They're doing great, but I think we are full of concerns, and so I think it's a kind of a misconcept to overcome your fear in the first place, because I think that it doesn't happen. So unless you're a Zen Buddhist and you can say, I'm really over it. I think for normal human beings, we are still scared of many things, and that's fine.
It's more your reaction to it as opposed to not feeling it.
Yeah.
And for our audience, a lot of people who are entrepreneurs or are interested in starting a business, what would you advise to people who have a dream or have a concept and want to turn that into a business?
I think when we have this approach of writing a chapter which is interesting to read in our life, then we can freely start, because if we fail, then we have a good story. If we don't try, then we don't have a story at all. So I think if we just have this guideline of creating a good story in our life, we are absolutely free to try anything. And then if it doesn't work out, fine. It will cost us money. It will cost us some kind of reputation. It will hurt. It will destroy us. But that's the story. And I think when we come from this storytelling point of view in our life, then it would really open up a broad field of different possibilities. And if we fail, so what? So.
Are there some scenarios or experiences in your life where there was a significant failure, and how were you able to bounce back from that?
Yeah, I think it's every time when you go into an absolute new field you've never done before. So when I approached the stage in the first years, I was asked to hold lectures in front of clients of my watch sponsor, and I didn't go there because I said, no, for me it's too ridiculous to talk only about skydiving. I would not like to do that. And then I thought to myself, maybe I should try. And if I do have a message that goes beyond skydiving and being a kind of a silly superhero, then I would like to be on stage. And then the first time I was on stage was absolutely frightening and brilliant at the same time. And I think it's always a big risk when you go into a new field, whatever that is. And I think there are training grounds everywhere, so we can just give it a go.
So just do it.
Yeah, but not
the Nike approach. Just
yeah, exactly. But maybe not with the ambition to succeed in the first place.
Right.
Just by creating a next chapter, which would be interesting to tell.
Yeah.
And I think that my company is called Wave of Success, so erfolgswelle. And usually my clients, they tell me, oh, it would be great to surf on the wave. But the one thing they forget is that all the waves, they do have deep valleys, and you have to wait for the next wave. And that's really boring. That's really frustrating. But I've never seen surfers in California who were swearing on their boards because there was no wave coming. That's how it is.
Right.
And nowadays, when we talk about success and a really good job in creating a company or whatever, we always talk about the success. But I think the way to success is always this ups and downs, and that's what we tend to forget.
Yeah, it's true.
And now we have this time where everyone reminds himself, now it's a calm moment in the world. Everyone is waiting. Everyone is paralyzed even, and maybe that's necessary, because we have been on such an arousal, such a stressy way of life, and now it's the opposite. Of course, that's not nice at all. Even not for me. I do not like it at all. I like extreme situations, but not when I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
But I think there are always these two ways, and it must be a balance at the end. And maybe now it's a preparation for wilder times ahead.
Could be. That's true. Yeah. So part of your passion for flying and for especially the skydiving aspect came about as wanting to raise awareness for a special energy source. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and that concept, and how did you come about? What brought you to wanting to highlight this opportunity?
Yeah, it was by chance. It was really interesting. We had this idea to fly in free fall with the best tailwind you can get. And then there was this idea of flying inside a hurricane or in a hurricane force wind. And the jet stream was right from the beginning was an option, but we didn't find any pilot who was crazy enough to get up there. And then with the jet stream, there's a lot of historical things going on with the jet stream. I didn't know that the Japanese, they tried to bomb the United States in the Second World War with balloons. And they sent these balloons in Japan, and they even touched ground in the US. They didn't explode at that time, a bit later. But that especially was one idea to use this force in a peaceful way. And we thought if it would be possible to even bring the energy down from this altitude, it would be nice. And that led to the Swiss startups. They are investigating into high altitude wind power, and the higher you go, the more energy you get, and especially if you double the amount of speed, you get 8 times more energy out of the air. And that's our own experience when we fly the kites. It's always hard to bring it up, and once it's up, then it's easy to steer. It's fine, and you have to run in the beginning. And so the higher you go, the more energy you will find. And I think that's a fascinating concept, and that's why the BBC World News they told us, okay, it's really a great story. We should be part of it.
And since then, in the last years that you've been exploring that, what is the progress that has been made, or what is the current status of the potential of harnessing that energy? There
are about 24 companies in this field, and they have most of them, they have proven concepts, so they really fly. They are up in the air. Their only problem, the biggest problem is they do not get the funding to really make it now industrial scale. But it would work. They have some failures. There was Google was in with a Makani and with Shell in the corporation. They had some crash, or it was more or less one crash, and now they rejected, I think. But there will be different companies with different concepts, maybe with small fabrics of kind of kites, like kite surfing. And I think we have to explore all the different possibilities how we can harness natural energy, because we don't have any other option. And I don't see this concept of saving energy as a humanity. I don't think it will happen. So even now we use a lot of energy anyway, so we have to find new sources. And it must be that the world has this potential to fulfill all our needs in energy. It's not a smart concept to burn fossil energy anyway. So
And have you thought of starting a company in that field yourself as well, or is that it's more from the awareness perspective?
Yeah, it's really the awareness. So we are not involved in any of kind of these startups, and I think that's the best way to keep an open mind and not to favorite one or the other startup. And it's the same for our next exploration. We will go into the deep waters now. We make a new record attempt there, and it will be the same. The question, how can we bring out the highest amount of energy out of water in a new way? So it will not be the old way of bringing out water of this hydropower energy. It will be new ways. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, and it's even better than the record itself. I do like to break records and to set new one, especially when they're crazy. But I think the higher cause of, at the end, of saving the planet, that's the greatest thing you can do.
That's true. Speaking of records, is there any personal records or any other records that are less known that you have?
Yeah, there was 12 years ago I set the first world record in speed over ground. So I tried to measure my speed over ground like a car or like a train, and usually you fall down at the rate of 180 kilometers per hour, 200. And at the end, I ended up with 304 kilometers of horizontal speed. So my own speed was 400, gliding down this path without any wings. And I wondered myself, how that could be possible. And but that was not an official Guinness record, because this discipline doesn't exist. And then in the jet stream, it was a world's first. And I didn't know at the time that Guinness also recognized world's first records. And that's it happened 1 year after.
Do you have any records that are not related to flying?
No, not yet. No, I have a lot of stupid ideas, but no, I think the next record will be a free diving record. I would like to set myself, but first I have to lose weight, and that's
the opposite of what you needed before.
Yeah, I had to put weight, and now I have to lose it again. But it's good, so everyone is happy.
And speaking of your daughters, do any of them follow in your passion of flight?
No, I don't hope so. No, they're in their studies, film and biology. And No, that they just have to find their own way. And I'm not sure if a record must be involved in that. No.
Well, not necessarily from a record, but more from the flying perspective.
Not even from the flying. I think they had enough of flying stories of their dad, and they were really they were kind of bored at the end of constantly being exposed to the next steps in our adventure. Yeah. And that's the hard thing. And sometimes we tend to forget that. But if someone stands on the stage talking about his success, there's a high price to pay. Yeah. And one of the high prices to pay is for the family, because they have to really be patient with your constant same story of how can I achieve the next step.
True. That is a topic that I've had a few times with different people, mostly privately, about the mental health aspect of founders and the stress that it brings into whatever environment that you're in, either with your family or your significant other. And it's something that it's nice that nowadays there's more openness to this conversation and people are more willing to get that support. But it is something that's really important to be able to talk about and be able to get help around. Because, like you said, overnight success often takes 10 years, and it's not something that it's easy to get on stage and tell the happy ending, but you never know everything that went through.
And I even think that it's a kind of a handicap if you are so your determination is so strict, and you have to keep to your own goals, like a dog biting into a stick, and you can't release that stick because you just can't. And I think it's kind of maybe it's even it's a handicap if you can't do that. Right. And so it should not be celebrated too much, because it's quite hard for the ones who are biting and who can't release. And at the end, usually it leads to success in any way. But there's this high price to pay, and we tend to forget that. There's this risk of overshooting everything. And I really think even mountaineers, if they go to the next mountain, it looks like a kind of handicap. It's a bit of embarrassing. It's ridiculous as well. And in my story, it was ridiculous even for myself, but I had already put so much of energy in it, I couldn't release it anymore. So I had to follow the way. And at the end, you're on stage and you say, "Oh, it's great what you achieved," but I achieved it because of a handicap of my character as well.
Yeah. Okay. And when you were talking to BBC in the interviews, you mentioned how this whole process of creating this adventure and this record taught you a lot about leadership. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you learned about leadership and how other founders can be better leaders?
Yeah, I think one of the main points is, if you are burning for your goal, then you will infect others, and they will love your story. They want to be part of it. And I think the best team anyway would be a combination of individuals fighting or working in the same direction, but with their own personal identification in this project. And I'm not too much of a team player where everyone is a part of an anonymous team. In our adventure, everyone was key in his own way. So we had oxygen specialists, we had meteorological specialists, we had ground staff. It was brilliant. Everyone was essential for at the end. And I think that's the big miracle. If a real exploration works at the end, it's this combination of these individuals working into the same direction. And I think you can do that by inspiring them if you burn for this goal, and if it's a bit with a smile as well. So you need a bit of humor, because the goal usually is ridiculous, especially if the ambitions are high. Then from time to time you have to just admit it's crazy. We are all fools. We are a crazy bunch of people going into the same direction, and I think that's relaxing for the whole team, especially when the aims are high.
Yeah,
And so I'm not really in the position to write leadership books, how it really works, because I think that you have to put everyone in his individual highest power position. And I think that's the key, that's the secret. But I'm not sure if that's really leadership.
I would say so. I mean, there's different types of leaders, and I think some of the best leaders are exactly what you said. That especially when you're founding a company and building your team, that you find not people like you, but people opposite to you, because that way, and then also people who can really shine in their own specialty, and then you give that trust. And then sometimes it's the case where someone starts the idea, has the idea, wants to be the CEO of their company, but they're not the best CEO. Yeah. And so it takes a certain type of leadership and humility to say, this person, I want to join the team to be the CEO of the company, because they know the business strategy, they know how to fulfill that role better than I can, and I can focus on what I'm good at, the other person. And so I think that is, sometimes depending on you do need a strong character at the forefront, and other times I think, exactly as you said, you just need someone with a vision that ignites that vision amongst the team, and everyone does exactly what they need to do to the best of their ability. So that's yeah. And with your company, where you have an agency, a creative agency for brand development and creating names, how did that come about?
Yeah, I was creating a small company as a copywriter, and I always liked slogans and claims and short messages. And I think the shortest message is the name of a company. If you have to compress everything inside 1 or 2 words. And I think that's the highest standard you can get as a copywriter, to come up with just 1 word. Right. And that's the ambition I had to do that. And then it turned out more and more that I was creating names. Before it was headlines, tags, claims, and more it was names. And there are not too many specialized naming agencies in Europe, and especially not in Switzerland. And I thought this would be the best thing to do. And I just started. Okay. It took off from there. Yeah.
From that perspective, I mean, that's also a challenge that many founders have. They have a great product, a great idea, but especially nowadays, all the .coms are taken. There's nothing new.
Yeah.
And then also from my perspective, I agree that there's a lot of value in the name. On the other hand, you look at names like, I don't know, Tinder, Google, Yahoo, which don't really, they've become a name, and because of their success. And so how do you see the difference between finding something that's meaningful versus something that's more easy to say, or something that you can just build a concept around?
Yeah, I think first of all, you don't have to lose your faith in your own name if someone destroys it, because that's the easiest thing. You can destroy names in an instant. So let's take Puma, the sports brand. Yeah. If I would ask you, have you ever seen a Puma in real life? What would you say?
At the zoo?
At the zoo, okay. I didn't see any Puma, even not at the zoo. So in a management board, maybe we don't have a real image of a Puma. It's crap. Yeah. You can't take Puma, because we even don't know how it really moves. So Puma is a bad name. If you take his brother with Adidas, we would say, of course, nowadays we'd say, are you crazy taking the first name of Hitler as a part of a company name, like Adolf Dassler, Adidas? Nowadays it still works with this name, and it goes on and on. You can take Nike. If you say Nike in Switzerland, we say, how do you really pronounce it? Do you say Nike? Who is Nike anyway? So the goddess of victory. I've never seen her. So and she has 1 wing, or we have just 1 wing. No, we need 2 wings, because otherwise it doesn't fly. So you could kill Nike in an instant, because no one has this picture of Nike as a goddess, and you would just skip it. Yeah. And you can do that with all the names you have. And if you do have a good name that really works, even when the domain is not free, but if you say that's my name, then keep it. Try to keep it and try to trademark that. I've heard that one of your sponsors is attorneys and lawmakers. So really go into this direction and find a way to really file this name as your own trademark. And from there on, you can start. And if you take Google, Google was not a name before as a company. Nowadays, everyone says, "Oh, I would like to have a name like Google, like Yahoo." But because of all the life and all the history that goes into this name, not because of you have heard it one time. Oh, that's a brilliant name. No, it's not. We made it a brilliant brand as a consumers on a daily basis. And I think when you have a capacity to make a combination of different words and parts, and you make a new combination, it's like creativity in making music, and then you have a new solution, and then the chances increase that even the domain is free.
Right. True. And then after a while, you also started naming babies. Yeah,
that started from kind of a silly idea, because a friend of mine asked me to name his baby. Okay. I said, we don't do that. Especially we do not want to trademark baby names. Okay. And so that's why we make sure that the new baby name is not an existing trademark anywhere. But that was more or less a news story, and it took off for three years in a row. It was always, he's creating baby names, and how dare you? It's like a sacred act of giving a name. And especially when all these celebrities came up with some silly names, but some beautiful as well. And then this idea popped up: why don't we do that? And then there was the BBC again, and they wanted to prove our service by finding a couple with a pregnant woman, and they said, okay, now the baby is already born, we have still some days left, you have to come up with a name, but instantly in 3 days, and we will film it and we'll broadcast it. And basically they wanted to show us how we fail, but at the end it worked out. And now can you tell us the name? Yes, it's her second name. So because the first name was fixed by her mother, she wanted to have a Betsy, and the second name that's now ours, it's Onia. It's Onia. It's from the goddess of the dreams, the Greek goddess, but in a different way. Yeah. So now it's Betsy Onia. Okay. And so she's walking around with that name now. But it's quite a big responsibility to come up with a name, because these guys, they will walk around for their life with the name, and it's you can't just change it and buy a new domain. Or yeah, no, really. I couldn't sleep for 3 days there in the creation process. So. And are there any other interesting names that, like that, off the top of your head, that you've created? No, usually it's not our main occupation. We are still in this trademark name creation of brands and products and companies. So it's not baby naming at the first place. And is there any particular brand or company that you worked with that that was particularly exciting, or that you're proud of, or that stands out? Yeah, I think when it comes to clean energy, because that's the one thing I like, then it's Aventron, and Aventron is still a company that flourishes, that works great, and I think that's a good combination of avenir from French and tron from electron, and Aventron, and that's really a name that worked also from a legal point of view, because you can have the greatest name, if it doesn't work from a trademark point, then you're lost. Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to younger you, if you could go back and tell you as a kid or as a teenager? Keep dreaming. I think it would be keep dreaming, because I think when it comes to creativity, we have to take care that the system and the society doesn't kill this creativity. Because we have so many opportunities to lose this creativity, from school to companies to a relationship, that at the end, most of us think we are not really creative. And that is a shame, because when you ask this question in the kindergarten, everyone is creative. They invent stories, they write when they can, sometimes they already can write, or they make the nicest designs, they dance, they sing, and they do anything, they dance, really. And from there on, you lose this capacity. And I think that's a real shame of our society. So keep dreaming, I think, is is a good advice.
True. From the audience, I don't know if we have any questions that have come up already.
Yes, we do. We have a question from Frank. Is speed an addiction, and is there a feeling that you're looking to replicate each time?
Yeah, I think speed is, especially when you go into this limit or to these boundaries where the speed is really ridiculous high, I think it can be absolutely a brilliant thing to experience. And I do know some skydivers who really need to jump because otherwise they would feel crap. But it's not the same for me. I just love the new adventure. I love the training. I love all these small steps, and the speed itself. It's I like the speed, but you can have a speed even on the ground by running. You can have a speed by not in the car, but you can ride a train. And today I came from Bern, and I was quite impressed how fast the train was going before it broke down. I think it's not a real addiction for me, especially because I'm not this kind of adrenaline pumped superhero energy drink guy, as you know.
There's a couple of more questions.
Yeah.
Yes. So how do you feel when you're at the edge, really when you're approaching your limit? What kind of feeling do you have there? And is there any comfort that you find in these situations so that you can overcome your limits?
Yeah, I think the comfort always sets in afterwards. So if you are really approaching a limit, it's not the best relaxed state of mind you can have, because otherwise it would not be a limit. And I think that's the same for explorations, for adventures. If you are sure that you will achieve your goal, then it's not an adventure. You shouldn't call it an adventure. Because the uncertainty and the risk is a part of going to the limits. Yeah. And you shouldn't feel too relaxed by doing that. But I always had this deep feeling that I should be able to cope with the situation, with the danger. And afterwards, it's like going for jogging. I think jogging is nice, but the best part of jogging is if you're back home after the shower, if you're laying down, if you're absolutely done, that's great. And it's the same with approaching limits. I think when you go to this limit, when you expand yourself, and then you can look back and then say, wow, that was great. Maybe not in the moment itself.
Yeah.
No more around.
No? All right. Yeah. Is there something that...
yes, maybe I can ask it, but then it's not going to be very so that if you had any mentor or inspiring figure who triggered you?
Yeah, there are many. I think it's quite hard to point out one or two of them, but I think if you go on your own channel and if you listen to inspiring people, then you find always some nuggets. If you go to TED Talks, if you go to whatever event you can attend, you will have the small nuggets. And I think it's even more important than to have one figure as a person, is to have some message you really hook. You say, oh, that's it. And it doesn't matter who will be the messenger there. I'm not sure if you need these icons of adventurers or entrepreneurs. I think you can just have this kind of gold nuggets in the message, and that could just pop up even in a calendar. If you see a nice quote, you say, that's it in the moment. You don't need the person. I think it's more the message.
We have another question. Is there any legal advice you wish you would have had or that you would find helpful when founding a company?
A legal advice. I think if you have a variety of names, if we are back in the naming creation, and if you have a handful of names you can bring to the lawyers, it would be great, because they will destroy 3 or 4 of them, of course, because they say the risk is too high and they are too many similarities. And so if you do not have your own one favorite, and so the trademark lawyers will destroy that name, I'm sure. And if you have a variety of names, it gives you more freedom because you have different directions to follow. So this would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. And how have you gone about juggling different aspects? So I guess you've had your naming agency in parallel to the training and the whole process of achieving this record and the awareness and the documentary that's being made. So what advice would you give to, because as many times as a founder, especially in the early days, you have to wear many hats, and you have to be switching from one profile to the other, and the different responsibilities.
Yeah. So my first idea was I have to really separate these things. I have to be in training, and when I'm in training, I will not be on stage. But in reality, it was a mix again, and I just had to have this mix because of I had to survive, and I was creating names while I was preparing for training. And then one day later, I flew from Barcelona back to Zurich for a speech, flew back into the training, and I think that's reality at the end. We can try to focus really on one thing, but especially in the beginning, you have to juggle all the balls in the same time. And I think if you find a relaxed state of doing that and switching fast, I think that's the one important thing. You should not have your mind in the things that happened, because it stopped and now it's the next thing. And you can, as we are used to change channels. If you go on your social medias, you're not hooked in the old media, you're in the new as soon as you flip into the new one. And I think in life it could be the same. You just go into the next and you go back and you go to the next. So, but it's constantly power consuming stuff to do. Yeah. And it's quite hard. But I think it's also interesting because that's how life is. Mm-hmm. Usually we can't concentrate on one thing. And especially you have kids your own, and you know that if you cannot concentrate on that one kid, maybe there are other kids, maybe there are traffic. So we have to constantly be aware of different things anyway.
True, very true. And speaking of finding the balance, what do you do when you want to relax?
I would like to go to the sauna and to wellness, but now everything's closed, so it's really a bad winter for me. And I realize it now because I did it once or twice a week for years now, and it's really missing. And so maybe I should build my own private sauna in the garden now.
Yeah. I've seen those barrel saunas that you can attach to the back of your car, and you just take it with you wherever you go.
Yeah, you have to give me the address there. That's good.
And is there a mistake that you've made, or something that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, when I was constantly into this flying, and when I became a father, I was not concentrated enough in raising the kids for the first years, because I felt that I must fly. It was kind of this dog and this stick. I couldn't let go of this idea. I must fly. Yeah. And nowadays I would say just relax. Just take your time. Just stop flying for some months, some years, and go back into flying if it's so important. Yeah. And I think there I missed maybe 2 or 3 years, and that's a bit of a shame because it never comes back.
True.
Yeah. But then I could compensate it. I could even overcompensate it, and so the kids, they still live with me now most of the time. So I'm fine, absolutely fine with them now.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions going back to a different topic. What is your acquisition strategy during COVID?
Yeah, that's a hard point because usually I do not need this strategy because the clients, they just knock on my doors. And I think especially when it comes to naming process, it's senseless to ask companies, do you need a name right now? Because they don't. And if they need a name, they just They just search for Namensagentur, naming agency Switzerland, and they will find me. So that's the way I do. And it's the same for being on stage. I was never successful. I never even tried it really to reach out to potential clients, because if they have an event, they have their topic, and if the topic fits, they will find me. So I think nowadays you should more or less turn it around and wait until you will be found by your presence on websites, on different channels. But I'm not really this guy of knocking on doors at potential clients. I should do that more. But if there's someone out in the audience who is brilliant in that, so please give me your advice. But I'm really not the expert in that. And I was always lucky to find the clients just like that.
They came to you.
Yeah.
You said there was another question.
No.
All right. Well, we're slowly coming to the end of this session. It's always really interesting to hear, especially from the personal side. That's the focus of Startup Grind, and being able to hear the personal experiences. Yeah, it was really amazing to hear that and your journey and everything that you had to share. Yeah, I think we like to wrap up with what we call rapid fire questions. It's a little bit of a different approach. Instead of a more elaborate and longer answer, the idea is as short as possible.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong answer, and typically the first thing that comes to your mind is what we're looking for.
Great, let's go.
So what's one item that you own that you would never sell?
My watch, because it's a really branded watch. It's a world record watch from Formex, Swiss brand, best Swiss brand ever. I would never sell.
What is your most unusual skill?
I do have one, but I'm not sure how I can tell it in English. I can make like soap bubbles,
Okay.
just like that. I can't do it here because it's ugly and it's COVID time. But yeah, and it's embarrassing.
That is unusual. What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Speed, I think, can be really a door opener, because if you're faster than the other one, you have your foot in the door already. Mm-hmm. And I think speed is, even in the thinking process, I think speed is essential. We have been the first in the jet stream. There have been 3 teams trying to get there. We were the first. So I think speed is essential.
Is there you already said before, is there a historic figure that you admire? I think you already answered that earlier by saying it's more than nuggets, but... No,
it's Jules Verne, it's Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, it's writers, I think writer could be a great thing, and I would like to write a novel or short stories in the beginning. So I think that will be one of the next paths anyway. Yeah.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
Today, a big event in a big flat and absolutely empty. So that's a new experience, and I like it. So, because no one is interrupting. It's perfect.
What's your favorite season of the year?
It's summer. Yeah, no question. It's summer. Yeah.
Team or single founder?
I think a team of single founders would be great.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Beer or wine?
Both.
And the favorite app on your phone?
Today is SBB. It's meteorological things. So I love to see the future, especially because no one knows if that's true. It's kind of a guess.
Yeah.
I like weather apps.
What's something on your bucket list?
It's the next adventure now, when we go into the water, into the ocean. And that's really the bucket list, to dive the best I can, just on one breath. And I'm trying to hold my breath now in training. I'm approaching now 4 minutes, which is not too bad for me, because I was far away from 4 minutes. And I should reach about 6 minutes. And this would be a great start to get into the water then. So that's the bucket.
6 minutes is the starting point.
Yeah.
And the target?
I can't tell you now because
you don't know your limits yet.
No, just a beginner. Yeah.
And if you could have the attributes of any animal, what would that be?
Flying, of course.
Not swimming. Or a flying fish.
Yeah, a flying fish or a swimming bird. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Marc, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for all that you shared with us and the time that you took. Really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure to be here with you and to hear from your experience. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, David. It was a pleasure to be here. And thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.